Go. My name's Rob Fenton, and we're getting you to look at this video at this point in your course because you're at a very vital time in the process of developing your farm landscape design. You are designing a very complex farming system in a changing world. You're building a framework for a system with multiple connections all over the place, and we don't think you can do that with enough opportunity for change unless you go through a very complex process. You have been gathering together data, you've been using tools to come up with ideas, and you've got a basket full of all these ideas and bits and pieces that will go to make up your farm design. Now it's a matter of getting it all together into a design that's going to work. You've got a framework of things that you can't change, and those things that you can't change are like the blank canvas that you're going to build your painting on. Some examples of things that can't change would be the land shape, where the ridges and the gullies are, where the creeks run or where the native trees are, things like that. And depending on how complex your landscape is, that is going to have a larger or smaller effect on what your design is going to be. So here you are, you've got a blank canvas, you've got all these ideas, you've got all this data, and somehow you need to come up with this complex plan. I need to draw a picture to explain how we think a process can be done to help you do this. At the moment, you could think yourself as being in a fog. You've got all this information, all these ideas, but eventually you've got to come out of the fog in a direction with a farm design. Now, depending on how you use those ideas, you could come out in all these different directions out of the fog. Which is the right one? Well, we don't know. But the longer you stay in the fog, bouncing these ideas around, the more likely you are to come out in the right direction. If you come out too quick out of this fog, it's likely that you're in exactly the wrong direction. So what we're suggesting, the process here, and this process is quite uncomfortable for some people, is to accept that you're in a fog, accept that there's all this data, all these ideas, all these concepts that you've worked on and developed up over the last few months, and somehow you've got to put them together. You are going to bounce around in this fog with all these ideas until finally the direction will become apparent, and it will. And the more bouncing around you do, the more ideas you come up with, the more of those design tools you use, the more likely it is that you're going to come out of that cloud in the right direction. So, we're bouncing around in the fog, we're testing and rearranging and bouncing again. So let's have a think about that for a minute. In this process here, there's probably three things we're doing. We're going somewhere, we're testing one of those things, one of those ideas we've come up with, and we're rearranging things and then trying it again. Over time, we'll start to build up layers of a complex system. We're really reluctant to give anyone any step-by-step guides to this because everyone's different. You know, someone might be an asparagus grower, someone's growing calao or cango. Everyone will have a different process. This is actual learning. This bouncing, testing and rearranging is just classic action learning. And the more bouncing and testing you do, the more likely you are to come out of the fog eventually in the correct direction. Now, there's a couple of issues that people have with this all the time, and the first one is to have the confidence to actually do it, to have the courage to think that you are right. Now, there are no experts in this. In fact, the only real expert in this is you, because it's your farm, it's your landscape. You've spent the last 3 or 4 or 5 months actually gathering all this information together. You're the expert. Talk to other people, get involved in other people, but make your own decisions. Do your own bouncing. Don't let anyone else guide that bouncing for you. The other danger is to already have in your mind, this is what I'm going to do, and have a pre-planned direction for your bouncing. Lots of people do that, and you may end up in the right place, but at the same time you may miss a whole lot of opportunities that you're not aware of because you don't allow yourself the flexibility. So it's very, very difficult, but please try not to be pre-planned. Please try and be really open-minded certainly in the early stages of your bouncing, be really open-minded in what you're doing. And finally, it's important to realise that what we're trying to develop here is a concept, not a detailed design plan. That concept is going to be the guiding concept for your farm into the future. The future is going to change, you're going to change, everything's going to change. If you design detail too soon, then that gives you less opportunity to move with those changes. So this plan that you're coming up with, when you finally come out of the fog, and bingo, there it is, it's a concept. It is not a detailed plan, exactly where the fences are going, exactly what's going to happen, but a concept. Right. Righto, are there any questions?
Yeah, I've got one. I've bounced around the fog for ages, and what happens if I get out of the fog and I've mucked up?
You're less likely to, first off, you're less likely to muck up if you spend your time in the fog, rather than saying, you know, here's all the stuff, I'm going to go there. You know, that process there is a one-way street to a point you've already predetermined. That may get it right, but there's a higher risk in getting it wrong doing it that way than this way. And you must remember also that there's probably a number of different correct answers in this too. There's not just one point where it's exactly right. And in the landscape designs, the farm designs that I've been involved in, I think, and that's quite a number of them, I think that by using this process, it's very unlikely that you're going to get it wrong. It's a matter, the question really you're asking is not so much about the process, but about the courage to believe in the process, or the courage to believe that you've got the knowledge and the skills and developed up the information that you need to actually come up with the right answer. Lots of people have that problem of having the courage, but like I said in the talk before, there's no real experts on your farm apart from you. If anyone's going to get it right, it's going to be you.
So this whole idea is basically moving to an idea, not to a set of beliefs type thing.
No.
You're not moving to a structured, organised thing. You're saying that might be the solution. I'll go and look at this and try it out and see what happens. And then when the situation changes, when the drought changes, or when this sort of stuff happens, we're going from there and moving forward with that as well.
Yeah, what you're coming up with here is a concept landscape design for the farm system. Now, that may, in terms of let's for example use a grazing property, that may be how the grazing paddocks are laid out, how the laneways are, where the shelter is, water, all that sort of stuff. For an asparagus grower, it's a totally different thing. But it's not exactly where the laneway is, but the process of where the laneway should go to suit this farm design.
In some ways, you're looking at comparing it to the difference between a handyman and a tradesman, where the handyman spends a lot of time trying to come up with solve problems, but the tradesman's already got the skills, and we're directing ourselves towards the tradesman level.
There's a lot of difference between designing an ecosystem, which is what we're doing, and building a doghouse. A tradesman will build a doghouse based on a set of rules. The rules here, and this is an ecosystem, the ecological rules are so complex that it takes a complex system to be able to work through it to come up with an idea. This is about the concept of bug system versus cog system, isn't it? So I don't know if I've got the right time, if this is the right time now to go with that. But it may be.
I mean, if
I'll
you,
try it and see.
Yeah.
Right. Someone that's going to build a doghouse has got known inputs. They know where they want to go, where they want to end up with, and so there's a system that they're going to use to design and build that doghouse that we here at the National Environment Centre we call a cog system, where all the parts are known, they all fit together easily, they all do their job, and in the end you end up with something, a doghouse. In a situation where you're designing and developing a complex ecological food production system, that doesn't work because you don't know the inputs. And in fact, with climate change and peak oil and peak phosphate and all that sort of stuff, the inputs are really uncertain. So we use the idea of a bug system here, where you're designing complex systems with all multiple facets to it, with not really well-known inputs and not really well-known outputs. You can't. So a tradesman building a doghouse wouldn't be able to build a doghouse using this process, but we're not building a doghouse. I don't know if that answered it or not.
yeah, is it like being in the fog? Is that perhaps a period where you're getting to learn how the ecological, how that sort of living form that is your farm sort of works, and so and in a balanced and ecological way? And once you sort of once you've learned how that works and how to sort of give it what it needs, when it needs it, you're kind of coming out of the fog a bit, and you're getting an eye on it.
It could be, Will.
Yeah.
It could be. But each one of these in the fog here, we're doing that cycle all the time. We call it, in this example, we call it bouncing,
Right.
testing, and then applying or something, wasn't it? Rearranging.
Yeah.
Doing these cycles all the time.
Constant process.
And as we complete that cycle and we start bouncing, we're bouncing from a different point. With more knowledge, with more understanding of what we're bouncing towards. And so each time we do one of those cycles, each time we do that, we're getting closer and closer to the truth.
Yeah. And each time you go around a cycle, like your climate's changed or something in your land has changed, so you have to go and learn something else and you're back in the fog again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You might think you're suddenly popping out and then you're back in again. And depending on what kind of person you are, lots of people hate that.
Yeah.
You know, lots of people want to build a doghouse. Yeah. And so this is difficult, and this is why we're actually making this video. This is why we're having this talk right now, is to try and make people a bit more comfortable with this complex process, building complex systems. Any other questions?